And to examine the precious resource as far as Singapore is concerned, we are joined tonight by Getty Goh. He is the Director of Property Analysis from Ascendant Asset. Thanks for joining us this Friday,
Hi, thanks
Getty.
for having me.
All right, so we've heard all week that shoebox apartments, nothing new in places like Tokyo or Hong Kong, but is this sort of phenomenon here in Singapore?
Well, actually, it has. Shoebox apartments has been around since the 1970s. An example would be People's Park Complex. The smallest units there was about 400 square feet, and People's Park Complex was around since 1972. So small units has been around for quite some time.
Okay, but then we're seeing an increase right now.
That's right.
Almost like an explosion. Can you give us an idea of how big this is?
Sure. Before 2004, the transactions of shoebox units is like, every year they're going for, say, 10, 20 units. But after 2004, 2005 onwards, we have seen a double increase every year. And right now, we are seeing about 3,000 shoebox units right now.
Is this, you think, smaller apartment units an answer to finding affordable living spaces in a place like Singapore?
Well, I would say it really depends. I think it really depends on who you're talking about. And I mean, there's always public housing. So I think some people treat it as an investment. So I would say it really depends on who are we talking about here?
Shoebox apartment as an investment.
How is that so?
Well, let's put it this way. If you had bought a shoebox unit in, say, the early 2000s, you'd be sitting on profits right now.
Are you really?
Yeah.
The resale value for a shoebox apartment, people still buy them.
But if, let's say, you're
That's
talking
what
about...
we want.
Yeah, there's always a but. Okay, but if you were to enter the market right now, then I'll say it's a bit harder to meet the profits because it's been factored in. Now, if you had bought, say, in 2004, 2005, right at the onset of the boom, you'll be sitting on good profits.
Okay.
But right now, because all these expectations have been factored in, so I would say it's a bit hard to find good deals right now. A good example is we have come across shoebox units that's going for more than $1 million. Yeah, and if you were to buy a $1 million shoebox unit, how much profit can you sell? I mean, how much profit can you make from it?
Right.
Yeah. So I think right now it's not really from our point of view. We advise our clients, we advise seminar participants who comes for the seminars that we run. We'll tell them, you really got to think twice because it's been factored in. Who are you going to sell to? Can you sell for good profits?
Okay, but will shoebox apartment be like the norm now for families living?
Well. It's
investment aside, you're buying it and you're selling it for investment. But if you're actually going to stay in there, and is that going to be like the new norm now for us?
Well, I'll say that's an interesting question. If we were to compare, say, to places like Hong Kong, in terms of living space per square meter, Hong Kong is about 12 square meters. In Singapore, it's 27 square meters per person for the living space. So, which means that in a very dense city, small living spaces is possible. So going forward, in the past, Singapore, we all were living in kampongs, but we managed to socialize, and people are comfortable now staying in apartments. So moving ahead, if shoebox units are around for some time, I think eventually we'll get used to the idea.
Okay, another question, very quickly following up there. Is it going to get smaller?
I hope not. Yeah, well, I think I would say this is really dependent on the government policies. But from what we understand, like what Minister Koh Boon Wan says, there is no. Well, if we can take a leaf from what the HDB is doing, and which he says that it will not go down further, hopefully, that will be an indication of what's to come.
All right, in your opinion, Getty, what other solutions will be out there for the housing crunch in Singapore? Is it really smaller spaces, or? Well,
I would say that's a good question. The fact of the matter is Singapore's size is limited. But if you can't build in terms of area, well, the other way to build is up. So actually, one idea would be, to increase the floor-to-ceiling ratio per unit. This is such that, residents do have the flexibility of, say, building a loft level. Today, the provisions, the building guidelines, it allows for that. But people don't do that is because the floor-to-ceiling height right now doesn't allow for it. Going forward, if, let's say, developers, were to increase that floor-to-ceiling height, that would really give consumers or residents the flexibility to do so. Of course, it cannot be just a unilateral thing that the developers take on, because based on the master plan, there is height restrictions. So it's got to be something mooted by the government, and if the government allows for it, I would say going forward, some developers might take this on.
Okay.
Very interesting. Build up instead of building sideways.
Yes, go up instead of go wide. Okay.
Singapore is a pretty safe place for that, I would say.
Yes,
No
we
earthquakes,
hardly-
so it's okay.
Good. Well, let's see how that works out. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
We've been speaking with Getty Goh, Director of Property Analysis from Ascendant Assets.